We're gonna get going, everybody. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The roll call, please. Amy.
Mr. Anise?
Here.
Mr. Bova?
Here.
Mr. Brodsky?
Here.
Mr. Coyne?
Present.
Mr. D'Elia?
Here.
Mr. Ford?
Here.
Mr. Haskell? Mr. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Miola? Mr. Santaferci? Ms. Sesney?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have the draft March 25, 2024 minutes in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. Rich, thanks on that second. Any comments, corrections, deletions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The first item on our agenda is approval of the lease agreement on French Road, which is in your packet. Pat?
So I will turn it over to Dan in just a second, but this is a topic we've discussed several times about the need to create more space at Kemble Street and the goal is to get our mechanic operation and auto repair stuff out of that so we can use it more for warehousing, auto storage, parts storage. Dan Falzinski has been working with some of the folks at Kemble Street, scoping out some properties, excuse me. There were two we were going back and forth. We've decided that one was preferable to the other, and Dan can tell you all about it.
This is, I'm sorry, then the warehouse space behind the funeral home?
Correct.
Yep.
It's approximately 3,300 square feet of storage space. It's a brick building, good addition inside. It comes with open floor space, so we can move in a mechanical lift for auto repair service. And it comes with a bathroom, an office space, and a break room space. And all the terms and conditions of the agreement that are here in the packet have been agreed upon. The date is still to be finalized, so we're looking for permission to send this on to our finance.
And I'm sorry, I should point out that this has to be formally approved by the Water Finance Authority because it's a lease. It's considered short-term debt, and the Finance Authority has to approve it, but we don't want to send it over to them and ask them to vote on it unless we can also tell them that this board supported the proposal. So that's why you're discussing it tonight. Not to approve the lease necessarily, but to give us approval to take the lease to the Finance Authority. And the next step would be to gather that group together, assuming that everybody here agrees.
Correct. And it's a 3-year initial term for the lease with an option to extend.
So Dan negotiated this with John Dweed from Pavia, and we went back and forth for several months. They were looking for a little more out of us. He was able to change some of the terms initially they were asking for. But the building's clean, it's in good shape, it's ready to move in whenever we can finalize it. And again, the idea is to get our mechanics over there, take our lift right out of our Kemble Street garage, install it over there, and do our vehicle repairs there and be able to park more vehicles and warehouse parts at Kemble Street.
So the people that respond to broken mains and everything will still be out of Kemble?
Everybody will still be at Kemble Street. The only thing that won't be there is our vehicle maintenance facility to repair our own trucks. Yeah.
Would they settle on the rent?
Dan, the rent is how much? $2,300 a month? Yeah.
Any questions for, yeah, Bruce?
I don't have a problem with this lease being short-term. I have a real problem with looking at getting extra rented space when we really need to be talking about a new consolidated facility that'll serve the organization for the next 50 years,
Absolutely.
100 years. We need to start that process. And 3 years, I think it'll take us 3 years to do any building because of all the work that has to be done in advance as well as building. So, I mean, not part of this specific agreement, but I really would encourage the chair to designate a group and start this process of getting all of our
I
specs.
don't
in
have an
one
issue
place.
doing that, Bruce. In fact, I will put you in charge of that. But I will tell you this, until we get a handle on this lead issue, which could cost us
Yes. I know.
a gazillion dollars, the dream of this new facility is just that, a dream. We have no idea what's going to hit us on the lead end. And until that's at least remotely, we have no clue about it at all. So until that comes, I just am not in favor of even worrying about it.
Yeah, I don't doubt that that's going to be a big issue, and they just approved the regulations last week or this week, and so we're going to start hearing more about it.
Along these lines, anybody would like to volunteer and be with Bruce, please,
Vince, I know wants to.
you guys go to town and fill us in.
I got a question. Did anybody figure out how much the gas, oil, or any estimates on how much it's going to take to heat this place and maintain it?
I don't understand the question.
Simple.
Estimates on
Utility costs?
On utility costs, water, gas, and then you got a bond for it too for $100,000, I guess, for insurance. So how much is all that?
No, we're not bonding that. They will want to be named additional insured on our existing
So how much is
insurance.
that bond going to cost?
Minimal amount, probably $2,000.
$2,000 a year.
It's just additional insurance. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it was more than $2,000 a year.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of water costs, because we've got two mechanics in there. The real costs could be electrical. The owners right now are working on splitting the electrical and the gas services so they can be billed to us separately. The electrical costs are not significant. It's just the cost to operate a lift and mechanical tools. No different than the cost that we're paying for at the Campbell Street Yard. That cost is going to just be absorbed at another facility.
What kind of heating system?
They got hot air.
Forced air?
Yes.
Gas oil.
That's with gas. Yeah, it's a gas.
Well, it's not going to change the cost of Campbell Street. You're still going to be paying the same thing there.
No, but the use of the tools is going to be the same. You got the same two people using the same tools, just at one facility versus another.
What we're hoping will change, right now we're heating some of our outbuildings because we have crews still reporting to other buildings that we're heating and using as separate operational
Need some
outposts.
forced air in a building like that. It can really add up.
It can, yeah. I mean, this is, in our view, this is the lowest cost alternative than just living with the situation we have right now, which is not very conducive to a good operation. Not to mention that the mechanic operation in there has some safety concerns. There's a lot of tools laying around, there's parts laying around, they're moving vehicles in and out while we're trying to park stuff. So it really creates a lot of wasted time and effort moving vehicles in and out and trying to sacrifice that space. Now, they were looking for a 5-year commitment from us. Dan got them down to accepting a 3-year commitment so that we have some time to, reevaluate it as we go along.
So you're installing a lift. Did anybody do a core sample to what kind of lift you putting in?
It's a lift that's in our Campbell Street garage right now.
So you're transferring a lift. Do you know the weight? How much? All right. How much concrete can take what kind of concrete this floor got?
It's 8-inch floor.
It is. It's 8-inch floor, and
How do you know?
that's what the owners told us.
So
But hold on. So, 8-inch floor, and we have conditions in the agreement that we don't absorb any of the cost for any wear and tear for our normal use of the space. So if we bring our trucks in and there's a crack because there's not sufficient floor, then that's their cost, not ours. So
you got that in the
we
contract?
do.
You do?
Yes.
But we've been assured that the floor is load bearing for the lift and any vehicle that's on it for combined
And
weight.
you're putting an air compressor in there. You're putting cameras in there.
Correct.
You're installing anchor bolts. What the anchor bolts on the concrete for the lift? Correct.
That's correct. We got permission to do that.
And then they remove the anchor bolts and take everything with you.
Yes.
What about lighting?
There's existing lighting in the space.
You don't have to put any more lighting in the place.
Correct.
Because I work in garages and stuff. I'm asking you.
Yep. It's really a pristine space. The floor is in immaculate condition. The walls are in really good condition. It's a great space. It's a clean space. It's something.
Do you need any type of ancillary system because of any type of fire suppression system in there?
I'm sorry,
Any type of fire suppression systems in there? Fire, because of mechanical, you need fire hydrants?
There is one currently.
Is there?
Sprinkler system, yeah. There is a floor drain, and part of the condition of the lease is that we plug that drain. And so if there's any accidental spills into the drain area, that it's captured before it goes into the sanitary sewer waste stream. There's no oil water separator, as I understand it, so we're going to plug that outlet.
So you're gonna manually remove oils. You can't let anything get into the
Yeah,
sewer.
right now there's a grate, and we're gonna cover over the grate with steel plate, essentially, what we're gonna do. We're also, as a secondary measure, we're gonna plug that out, the discharge pipe out of the drain, so we're in compliance with city.
So there's no digging involved. You don't have to worry about hitting oil tanks or anything like that.
Nope,
No.
no. And we would use the same containment system for used oil and things like that we do right now at Campbell Street.
And your mechanics like this place?
Yes, they do. We're excited about the space, the auxiliary space that's done with it. We have a break room, a little office space.
And it's literally 5 minutes from Campbell Street, so it's easy to get back and forth. So we think it's a good location.
So the lease goes up next year and the year after that, am I correct?
After 3 years.
After 3 years, so it starts from 27,000 and goes up to 31,000
Correct.
and change.
If we decide to stay. But we haven't out at that.
How fast can you get that building together?
Good luck with that.
To me, you know what you can put up for that kind of money per month? That's my philosophy about it. And if you think that this is the only way out, how long can you trudge through doing the operations right now?
Well, we've been making do for 5 or 6 years and haven't had nothing but problems down there since then. So it's taken that long for us to decide we need to do something now.
We've looked at this for a pretty long time, and it's been a consistent recommendation on this site.
Who owns the site? Anyway?
McGrath's Funeral Home.
Oh, there.
Yeah, it's behind their building.
Anything else?
Well, most of the trucks are out during the day. So the big garage at Kemble is for the mechanics during the day. Actually, I mean,
Well, we have a lot of material storage that's outside
Yeah.
too that we really shouldn't be storing outside. It makes for extra flushing when we need to use it and disinfecting and everything else.
yeah.
And we can't store a lot of stuff on site. We got to store it at remote sites, which means it's travel time just to go pick something up and bring it. So it'll be more efficient this way, we think.
I don't think there's any question that we need more space. I mean, that's something
That's not an
we've
issue.
talked about. And we've been taking space away from Kemble Street because we have been asking to buy more stuff as we can because of the pricing. So we've been filling it up the space, and we've been doing more trucks. There's no question we need more space. And we'll get together a little ad hoc group and we'll start talking about it. I just think if we can get that conversation going, see what happens federally, who knows what's going to happen. It's going to cost us. There's no question it's going to cost us. But I think we should at least be prepared at some point to do something on our own and recognize that we're not trying to set up something permanently, for the next 20
This
years.
lease recognizes that.
Hmm?
This lease recognizes that.
And I was very pleased to see 3 years as opposed to 5 years. That was a very, very good move. I mean, if it ends up being renewed, I understand, but that was the
Gives us
best.
an exit.
And
Well, the existing building was built when, Denny? 1960, something like that?
Yeah, somewhere around that.
59, 1960, and it was a much smaller operation at the time. They had half the equipment that we have today. They didn't even have half the amount of piping they were maintaining at the time. And so, essentially, and we've known this for 15 years, we've outgrown that building.
We used to have pipe piled up to the sky up there.
Yeah.
All different sizes. Now they're
Someone care to make a motion one way or another on this?
I'll make a motion to also send this on to the finance board
Thank you.
for approval.
That was the second, Bruce. Any further comments or discussion?
I just don't like the idea of renting.
Well, don't like that thing, but we're actually leasing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna say no on this one, because I don't
All those opposed?
like the way it's started.
2 opposed. Thank you. Next. Resolution to declare MVWA as lead agency for secret review.
Get one before that.
Oh, sorry, I skipped one.
Oh.
Professional services for environmental review of phase 1B.
So I'll give you a quick background. Dan can obviously answer any questions you're going to have on this. We've talked now for quite a long time about this pipeline going east towards Ilion. And that is still planned. It's on the drawing board. It's still being designed. But we recognize on our end at the connection point, we need to do some improvements on the system to make sure all that water is available. So we would have a hydraulic improvement, upsizing of mains, et cetera, on our side of it, which we would do. And so there's an environmental review that has to happen with that. And then we'll also be talking about us being lead agency for that project. So it's called Phase 1B because Phase 1A is the actual transmission line. Phase B would be our half of basically the same project. So Dan, is there anything I'm missing you want to add to that?
Our project would start at Trenton Road in Deerfield and extend to Windfall Road in Schuyler. That's the Phase 1B portion of this transmission main extension. And then from that point, that's the Phase 2 project that the IDA is involved with, extending it to communities, a district in Schuyler, Village of Ilion, Frankfurt, and Herkimer Village and Town both. So this contract allows the consultants to prepare a work plan and submit an application for congressional funding. And so the work plan has to be evaluated for environmental impacts. Make sure it doesn't cross into archaeological site. If there's any concerns, if there's a research component and investigation component, make sure there's no environmental impacts. And that the result of that study evaluation needs to be sent in as part of the grant application.
Congressional funding, is that the state applying for a congressional grant or us?
We applied for congressional funding. This is previously with this consultant. This is an application to the EFC, New York State EFC, for similar dollars, just out of a different fund. This is their WIA grant, their water infrastructure improvement grant. And they have a requirement that every submission has an environmental review for the project. It kind of falls in line with the next resolution that we need to adopt.
Well, we did fill out 4 applications, 2 to our U.S. senators and 2 to the congressional representatives that handle this area in Herkimer, which would be Brandon Williams in Syracuse and Elise Stefanik up north. But the other 2 applications went to Senators Schumer and Gillibrand. Collectively, we're asking for $15 million. Was that the number? From all 4 of them. So we'll see if we can get that money from them, and then we're looking to use this WIA grant to get more.
Yeah. EFC has up to $5 million of grant award. And we're anticipating our project cost to be between $15 and $20 million.
So is continuation, or with our plan to move forward, really going to happen? That's what my constituents are asking. I mean, is it definite, or
So,
it's all
Based on what we know
just-
today, Ilion is fully committed to taking our water.
Yep.
We're going to go right by Frankfurt. They are at least interested in a standby connection, if not actually switching over. There are 2 districts in Schuyler that would also be fed by that. Right now, we're waiting for the Village of Herkimer to tell us if they're fully committed or not committed. And when we know that answer, then what we need to do on our end will be scalable. So if we're going to serve Ilion and Herkimer at the other end, which would be the 2 largest users, then it's the larger number that Dan just mentioned. If Herkimer turns around eventually and says we're not interested, then we're going to size our improvements to match a smaller transmission line to do only the demand that's going to be down there.
Now, who's currently in charge of that piece of it?
The transmission line going down there?
Yeah,
So the 5 communities have all chipped in. Barton LaJudas Engineering has been doing the design work on it, but the lead agency on that part of the project is the Herkimer County IDA, John Pisak. I don't know if you know
right.
John.
Yeah, I know John.
So they're the lead agency on that piece of it right now. And again, the question is, as we've been meeting with the towns over the years and the villages, we're waiting right now for the Village of Herkimer to tell us if they're fully on board. They do want to take a tour of our treatment plant, which we're in the process of setting up right now. And
So, are they seeking funding?
they've got funding for their side.
They
So
have enough funding to...
we're not paying for any of that line.
Okay.
They don't have enough funding to do the entire project, but the rest of the towns will be chipping in on, as you probably heard the term EDU basis, equivalent dwelling unit.
Yeah.
And they'll be rationing or apportioning the remaining charges on an EDU basis to all the potential users. So the more people that are involved, for example, Herkimer, it lowers the cost for everybody else that's going to be on it. If they decide not to be on it, then the cost per household will be a little more to make up that difference. But right now, the Herkimer IDA has secured about $10 million in grant funds
Right.
from
Is there
a variety of
any
sources.
engineering going on?
Yeah.
There is.
Um,
Some design.
Yeah, Barton LaJudas has been busy designing it. I don't know, Dan, if you have any.
Hydraulic modeling in the engineering office to understand the size of our main and understand the hydraulics and what kind of pressures and flows.
Is probably 70% designed at this point, maybe? I don't know. Do you know the answer to that?
I would say, yeah, close to 60 to 70%, sure.
Any feel for what the total funding might be required for that part of the line?
For their part or our part?
Their part.
20 million roughly?
It's about $20 million cost as well, and like you said, they've got about $10 million in grant awards right now, so the remaining communities would have to probably, bond for the remaining portion.
And then separately, Ilion is doing a $20 to $22 million improvement on their local distribution system, separate from the transmission line.
Yeah.
What the intent is that they'll probably want to eventually turn the whole thing over to us to own and operate. And we told them 6 or 7 years ago they need to make improvements to bring it up to what we consider to be on par with our piping system before we would consider taking it over. So they're working on that now.
Are there any plans to service the little roads that go off of,
Those would have to be done by parallel mains by districts. So I know, for example, in Schuyler, they've already planned to branch off the transmission line, run parallel mains to service the districts. And any future expansion would have to happen the same way. We don't want customers directly tapped onto the transmission line. So this particular item would be to award professional services for environmental review to take a first look at our side of those improvements to see what we're up against from an environmental perspective, and then also to declare ourselves lead agency for our side of that project, which again we're calling 1B. Yeah. So this is all required by secret. We expect it to be a negative declaration on the environmental process when we get along, right?
Any other questions? Yes, Vince? Oh, thank you. Is there a second? Thanks, Betty. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor of the resolution as presented?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Now we're on to the resolution declaring MVWA as the lead agency for SECRA review.
We'll make a motion.
Second.
Any other comments or questions or concerns? All in accordance with state. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Oh, I like that one. That was good. Next will be the resolution award of contract services for FEMA repair project phase 2.
So this all goes back to the Halloween storm. Several years ago, we had suffered a lot of washouts and damage. FEMA's been reimbursing us for a lot of this work, and now we're ready to bite off the next batch. Dan, do you want to maybe walk through it?
Okay, this is repair package 2. We let out a few months ago. We awarded a contract to another contractor to complete the phase 1 repairs, which were mostly repairs to exposed mains when they got washed out during the storm. This particular project is going to repair a transmission main that goes below the Prospect Dam. We've got it encased in concrete currently. That storm caused a lot of damage to that casing, so we're going to de-water a section along both sides of the pipeline and re-encase it with concrete. And then the second project that's involved with this award is we have a decant lagoon up at our water treatment plant, and the side of the decant lagoon that's adjacent to the West Canada Creek is pretty much obliterated. So we're going to reinstate that with real heavy stone stacked riprap, and hopefully that'll be a fix for a long period of time. We had let this out for bid. We just got bids in last week. We had 3 bidders. Our engineer's estimate was 1.1 million. The low bid came in at 880,000. The other two bids came in at 1.8 million. So
And I believe, Dan, tell me if I'm incorrect, please, but I think our matching share is 12%. FEMA covers 88%, 12.5%.
pays for 12.5 as well, and FEMA pays for the 75%.
And for our matching funds, we already bonded and have that money sitting there. I think that was $500,000 in the last bond issue.
Yeah, we designated 500,000 as our portion.
Any questions regarding this?
What was the major difference in the bids? Why the drastic
One
difference?
major difference is we had a preparedness element where there's potential if the Prospect Dam were a big fill up and flow, that they'd have to, within 2 days, evacuate and demobilize and remobilize. Other bidders bid it at $50,000 to $100,000 per remobilization. This bidder is assuming more risk and is only doing it at $500. So the big disparity there. We did confirm after the bids.
Did you confirm with the bidder?
That he was, yes. We worked with this contractor before.
Yeah.
We did confirm. We wanted to make sure that he was okay
Yeah,
with the
I
dollars,
see.
especially with leaving $1 million out there. And
Exactly.
he assured us that he believes he can get it done for that or less. So
Fantastic. Yeah, that's perfect. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Anything else?
Have we worked with Jablonski before?
we have.
Anything else? Someone care to move the resolution? We got them all, Gene.
I'll second it. That's it. There we go. Perfect.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next item's our first quarter investment statement, which is the first item under committee reports. Maybe the only item.
In your binders is the first quarter investment statement. Everyone, just a reminder to everyone that public authorities law requires that we provide you a statement of investments with any revenues and expenses that are earned or are expended from those funds on a quarterly basis. So this is the first quarter ending March 31st. So you have a list of 2 pages. These are primarily from our bonded funds. You can see that at the end of the first quarter, we've earned almost $301,000. And we anticipated it to be a lot even less than that. But so we budgeted $780,000 for the year, and we're already exceeding that. So things are going well right now. If you also remember, we set aside in the budget what we think might be an arbitrage situation where we might have to pay some of that money back. So we've set that aside. So you can see we're earning a lot more than I think that we are paying out in bonded interest. So we potentially could have an arbitrage situation going forward, but we'll see when that time comes. But we are earning good funds right now. Times are good.
Because interest rates are high.
Yes.
Any questions for Jim? Is there a motion to approve? Bruce, thank you. A second. Thanks, Rich. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The March finance report, Jim?
Yes. Also in your binder is the the third month financial report ending March 31st. Very quickly, consumption is down 1.8% compared to 1.5% from the previous month. So we're trending downward, which is not good. We internally have done a detailed analysis of what's going on. So we have somewhere here, I have a pretty detailed worksheet that some of my staff put together I'm going to bring that up at we have a Thursday staff meeting to kind of go into more detail as to what's going on. A lot of what we're finding is we're correcting leaks that were existing. There's some misreads that are going on, so a portion of that is just corrections. There are some folks that are using more water. There's some that are using a lot less water. So we'll go over that during our staff meeting, but it is down 1.8% year to date. So revenue is down 227,000 versus budget, but it's up 226,000 versus this time last year. So we are actually up, and that's primarily our rate increase. Cash flow is down this month. Primarily, we had to catch up with our contractor at our treatment plant. They just had recently billed us. They were behind, so we paid out 3 months worth of bills. That was sitting there, so we had a large outlay of funds. We also had to pay our property and liability insurance, which was later. We had to pay the full year. In the past, we've been paying quarterly. Now we had to pay the whole amount out. So it's a new insurance company, so they required us to pay it all out at once.
You know they can't raise your rates once you pay it all out within that term.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, we're good for that year. Yep.
Any questions for Jim?
You said it was down 1.8. Is that just for the meter reads? Is that how you
Yeah,
decide?
based on
Just on the reads of the meters?
Yeah.
Only on the meters, right? Okay.
Pardon me?
Oh,
Yeah, billable consumption.
Yeah.
so, okay, it's only on the meters.
Yeah, and we're comparing it from this first quarter to last year's first quarter of 23.
Any other questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. And then we have 4 affirmations of HR policies. Are there any changes to any of these?
No changes.
So we've approved these in the past. They're all in our packet. No changes. I'd like to do it in one motion approving all 4 of them. Thank you, Rich. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions, discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Okay, Pat.
I don't have too much to report right now. The rest is going to happen later in executive session and some of the old business items. I will just say that right now, Hinckley Reservoir, due to the rain over the last few days, is actually spilling over the top of the dam, which is nice to see. It's a little bit early. Typically, we'd like to see it spilling on May 1st, after they've filled the canal for navigation season, which I think they're going to start doing next week. So we'll see where we end up on May 1st. But it was trending downward as they were following the operating diagram, and it's replenished itself with the rain. Hopefully we'll get enough rain to keep it sustainable so we start the season with a full reservoir as we always do. The other thing I'll mention quickly was that I was at a conference recently where they were discussing the new revised lead and copper rules. The only thing we're still waiting to find out is who's going to be forced to pay for what, and so far that's not out there. So we didn't really get a lot of questions answered on that piece of it. The day that we were at one of the conferences, Phil and I, that was the day that the EPA announced new regulations on PFAS. Those sort of forever chemicals we're talking about, polyfluorinated chemicals. And it doesn't really have much of a bearing on us because it's still not detectable, correct, Phil? So we're not anticipating any costs related to those new regulations. I feel bad for utilities that have that problem. Yeah, just more testing. So other than that, unless there's any questions, the rest of this stuff will kind of fill in the rest of the report.
Anything for Pat?
Yeah, Pat, is there any progress on a new chip plant up at Marcy?
Progress meaning?
Do you get any tenants looking at the site?
Yeah, there's always interest in the site. Right now, there's been no commitment by anybody yet. Last I knew, Wolfspeed is still considering trying to lock up some of the site for another plant, but as far as I know, there's been no commitment in that either. So there's a lot of interest, but no solid plans yet.
Anybody else? Was that it, Rich? Was that it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Pat. We'll go to old business.
All right, non-compliance fee for meters we discussed over the last month or two. Real quick recap, we have some fairly large commercial customers that have large meters that we know are under registering. We need to replace them. Some of those meters are quite old. When our folks got in there to look at it, we decided we couldn't change it because it would need some plumbing alterations. We've told these businesses they have to hire a plumber. They are steadfastly refusing to do that. Some of these have gone on for several years. And the idea of this new fee, which is in the handout that looks like this in your packet, what we're doing is we're going to impose a fee for non-compliance, and it's designed to be stiff enough so that if they do the math, they'll figure out that they could pay for the plumber as opposed to paying for this fee over the next 6 or 8 months. The only caveat was that we had to have a public hearing because the board cannot change any rates or fees or implement new fees unless we properly advertise it in accordance with our enabling legislation, hold a hearing. Amy got the advertisement out within the prescribed window. It was in the paper. The hearing was scheduled for today at noon, right in this room. We were here for the hearing. I even had Ellis's gavel. Nobody came. So nobody spoke. We opened the hearing, we closed it, and we've met the legal obligation. So the board is now legally able to vote this fee in place. Our plan is to send these folks, assuming that the board enacts this tonight, would be to send final letters to the rest of these companies saying now there is a new fee, here's what it's going to cost. We're going to give you X amount of days, 45 days or 60 days, to tell us what your plan is. If you submit a plan with a solid date with a plumber, then we won't impose the fee as long as you can proceed and get it done within a certain amount of time. We would provide the meter to their plumber. Their plumber would then go in, make the necessary plumbing changes, and install the meter for us.
We reviewed these fees last month. I can't remember.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
And the board essentially gave you a green light on the fees, which is why you scheduled everything.
Actually, the fee I proposed is a little lower based on some feedback. What I heard was jack it up or they probably won't get their attention. So that's what we did.
I just wanted to clarify that. Then. Any questions for Pat regarding this? A motion to approve?
I moved.
A second and all over the place. You got it, man. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The revolving fund.
Yeah, this was the Phase 3A topic, right, Dan? Or is it something else? The second item under old business, drinking water state revolving fund application. Right, that was a 3A. Yeah, so this was actually something at some point in time we were hoping to ask the board to approve an application. Dan and I have kind of made our own decision that we wanted to discuss with you to make sure you agree that we will not be submitting an application. So EFC, Environmental Facilities Corp., monitors or administers the state revolving fund. We received money from them to do phase 1 of the new raw water line project, which was the pipe bridge. Phase 2 is the next 5,000 linear feet, which we received $3 million for. We also bonded for our share of that project. That's the one that's hung up, which we can talk about later in executive session if the board wants to hear more about it. But we're still waiting on these easements, which we haven't gotten. And so the EFC had a window where we would have had to not only apply for the funds, which was awarded, they actually told us we can get $3 million for phase 3A, which would be the next phase. However, we would also have to, by May, pass a bonding resolution saying we're hereby kicking off the bonding and we're going to bond and obtain the matching funds in order to receive the $3 million. Being that phase 2 is now stuck in limbo with input from the board, we're taking a little bit of a different course. Again, we can talk about that later. But Dan and I, at least right now, our recommendation would be that we not pursue this money. We've already gotten 2 extensions on the money for phase 2. We've spoken with EFC. They've told us that they see no problem in extending it again. They know that if the project doesn't get done this year, it's not our fault. But given that we don't know where we're going to be at the end of this year or next year, it doesn't make a lot of sense to take $3 million right now and kick off bonding when we may not be able to commence 3A for who knows how long. So right now, as much as it's nice to see $3 million sitting out there dangled in front of us, there's not a whole lot we can do with it until we have a clearer idea what our timetable looks like. And EFC said you're obviously invited to reapply for it sometime down the road. So that's our recommendation, unless anybody has a strong feeling otherwise.
There's no vote that we have to take on that. Right?
No, it's just more, it's an informational thing.
Yeah.
So if there's no objection, then Dan will tell EFC, thanks but no thanks. We'll reapply sometime down the road when we think we can do something with that money. The last thing, the lead service line funding award, we were listed for money potentially. We were told that we were actually going to be funded for $2 million for the lead service line inventory, not to take pipes out, but just any costs associated with the inventory. We've now received written confirmation from the Environmental Facilities Corp that we're going to get the $2 million.
Okay.
So, which is great news. The only thing we don't know is how soon we can access that money. What we'd like to do is hire a contractor. So Phil has a good contact at City of Rochester. They did a contract where they hired a company to do external investigations, essentially the same thing we're doing now, which is using our vacuum truck to excavate vacuum holes to do an inspection of their side and our side right at the shutoff valve in the street. What we'd like to do is, while we continue doing that with our own forces, use the spec from Rochester to put it out on the street pretty quickly and bid for someone else to do the same thing we're doing, have another vacuum truck, maybe two more if they have the wherewithal, to speed the process up. However, the only difficulty is that we would have to front some money until we're able to get reimbursed by EFC. We don't know how soon that would happen, but with phase 2 of the raw water line now in limbo and all of that bonded money sitting there, which won't get spent this year, probably 85 to 90% chance it won't. Some of it might be. We feel comfortable that we could borrow from that and replenish that with the EFC funds when we get reimbursed. So essentially, what we'd be looking for is a motion from the board to give the engineering department, Dan and his folks, the green light to go ahead and put a contract out on the street to start doing additional investigation work. The lead service line inventory is due by October. However, that just has to be our best guess with a pretty systematic approach that we think we can document. It's going to continue. That investigation work will continue long after October because the lead service line inventory has to be continually updated with more and more investigation. I think Phil told everybody last month there's an interactive map we have to have on our website, and that'll be updated periodically. So we would envision a contract and a contractor doing vacuum excavations to continue past October, and keep it going until the $2 million from EFC is used up. But we think that that'll get us a real long way in identifying true locations and verifications.
Pat, but you're talking about a bid for contract.
A bid, yes.
Yeah. Well, you said to put out a contract.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. To go ahead and, Phil got the bid specs. Dan's just having them reviewed and updated and standardized for us, our use. But we think pretty quickly we could put out a bid spec and then, put it out to bid and see what kind of pricing we'll get.
Would you put it out at a not to exceed $2 million?
Yeah, we'd have to, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hate bringing this up.
Yeah.
Ilion and the expansion in Herkimer County, are they conducting the same inventory right now and plan?
Yes. They don't have as many as we do, but they are investigating that and doing their best to identify lead services. Yes.
And will they be replacing lines?
My guess is we're not going to have water flowing through any proposed transmission line for another 4 years or 5 years. After that, it's a question of if or when they want to turn over their distribution system to us. We have a right of refusal if there's a reason we don't want it. We have a right to set some clarifications on it. But it sounds like we and them will probably be told to start replacing lead service pipes before we actually start flowing water or making some decision to take over their system. So they're going to have to start that work on their own.
But what's important to be clear on that is that we are not under what's going on with that line. We're not taking over anybody's system. We're talking about bringing the water through that line.
We're not going to pay for someone else's lead service replacements. Phil, you had your hand up? Something you want to add? Oh, Yeah, in the meantime, they're also doing investigations on lead service corrosion control. So we'll need to know before our water goes down there how it's going to react in those lead pipes. So that's also happening. But the inventory piece, they have an obligation to do.
Same thing.
Same thing as us. Yeah.
The next step in the process, I believe, is the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation's given us an award letter, but we have to get the board's approval to enter into an agreement with them.
Oh, yes, thank you.
So we should probably get a vote today.
That's part of the same group.
So once they send the paperwork, we can sign it. We'll lock in that we're going to get that $2 million. And at the same time, we'd like to then get a bid spec out to bid out for this service. So there's really two components. Thanks, Dan.
Right now, we're just talking about giving him the authority to send out the bid,
Yeah.
and then all this is gonna come back to us,
That's right.
the contract.
Yes or no? Like our paving contract no longer comes to the board because of how we changed our procurement policy. What comes to the board right now are construction projects and professional services. So if they're building mains, they're building a tank, they're building a building. If there's legal work involved, if there's architectural work, environmental counsel, that all comes to the board. The paving contract no longer does, or if we're buying 100 fire hydrants, for example. So it's considered a goods and service thing. It's really just digging holes and refilling them. They're not really touching our pipes. So under that guideline, Jim and I looked at it this morning. The existing procurement policy, since we modified it last, means we could award that contract as an administrative function and send them off going. If the board wants to bring it back and look at it, obviously we would do that. So essentially the approval that we would ask for tonight is to A, enter into the agreement and sign the paperwork with EFC to accept the $2 million, and then B, put the bid out on the street and start gathering pricing for that. And that'll go a long way towards locking in this inventory and have the state pay for $2 million of that. And as you said, Gene, the contract would be capped not to exceed $2 million.
just to make sure it's capped. And we believe we get that money back in order to put it back where we're getting it, to replenish
Yes.
where we're coming from.
Yep.
Anticipate getting it back before
Yep.
we have to use that money.
Right.
It's not
And
there.
it won't be a lump sum. It'll be, sort of a pay-as-you-go thing.
Yeah, okay.
So it'll be a unit price, and we
Yeah.
can just shut it off whenever we need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Someone care to move it?
I will.
Thank you, Gene. A second? Thanks, Denny. Any further comments, questions, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Any new business? I need a motion to go into executive session regarding a potential labor contract. Thank you, Rich. Second, Bruce. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.